Welcome to another episode of Photoshop Lightroom TV. I'm your host, Marek Mularczyk from SAItraining.co.uk, and this is another episode, another week of your weekly video podcast about anything Photoshop, Lightroom and photography. Now this week I've got a Photoshop and Lightroom tutorials for you, so there'll be one Photoshop tutorial, one Lightroom tutorial, so that's something for everyone. And we're going to start with a tutorial in Lightroom. And I'm going to, now before I tell you what I'm going to show you in Lightroom, just an announcement. You probably know that already, but Adobe Creative Suite 6 is shipping now. So you can download trial versions of Photoshop CS6. You can also purchase and get rocking with Photoshop CS6, okay? In case you haven't seen my videos on Photoshop CS6, on all the new features in Photoshop CS6, have a look on PhotoshopLightroomTV, and I've got a series of videos about new features in Photoshop CS6. Alternatively, you can also purchase a DVD with all videos in HD. To purchase DVD, go to SAItraining.co.uk and have a look on the books page. That's where you find all my books and DVDs. Now let's jump into Lightroom. Let me show you a quick tutorial on lens correction in Lightroom and on synchronizing settings in Lightroom. So let's jump into Lightroom. Okay, here I am inside of Lightroom, and in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to apply lens corrections in Lightroom and how to synchronize it across a number of images at the same time. Now, lens corrections, the one that I'm going to use here, was introduced by Adobe when they released Photoshop CS5 and Lightroom 3, and they created a number of profiles for cameras and lenses. So for example, when you take a photo, Lightroom can read the metadata from the file, find out what lens you used on what camera, and try to fix some flaws or issues with the lens. So here I got a number of images, and all these images were taken with the same lens, even though it's not that important because lens correction detects what lens you used and applies a particular profile, lens profile. Okay. So I'm going to start with one image. I've got this image selected here. I'm going to select this one here. I'll go into Develop module, and in Develop module I'm going to go to Lens Corrections, okay, and in here I'll check Enable Profile Corrections. So I'll click on that. You can see the image changes slightly, and you can see that Lightroom detected the lens that I was using, Canon EF 24105L lens with image stabilizer. Okay, so that's the profile that it's using. Okay, and it looks so fine. I could still adjust it if I wanted to, but the image looks just fine. There are no more distortions in the image. Now I'm going to synchronize it across all the image. So what I need to do is I need to select all the images. In this case, I can just use Control-A or Command-A on a Mac to select all the images, and if you look in here, I've got 73 images selected. I'll click Sync to synchronize settings between the images. You can synchronize anything. So if you look in here, if I just check None, you can synchronize anything from the Develop module. You can synchronize all of them or just check the boxes. In this case, I'm going to check Lens Corrections, and I'll click Synchronize, and it's pasting the settings, and it's done. Let's check it. I'm going to press Ctrl-D or Command-D on the Mac to deselect the images, and I'll select some random images to double check. Let's click on this one here. By the way, this is the Tesla Roadster, the electric supercar. Okay, profile corrections enabled, the same lens. Right, let's check another one. Let's check this one here. Enable profile corrections checked. Okay, let's check a few more images. See, maybe this one here. Okay, yep, checked. And maybe let's check one more image here. Let's have a look. I'll show you another electric supercar, the Fisker. Okay, and this gets enable profile corrections checked as well. So that's how you can easily apply lens corrections and then synchronize them across any number of images using Lightroom. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial in Lightroom. I hope you enjoyed applying lens correction and synchronizing data. Just to remind you, when you apply lens correction in Lightroom and in Photoshop CS6 as well, what happens is Lightroom is detecting the metadata from the file, so it doesn't matter what lens you used, what camera you used, Lightroom will detect the metadata and will apply it. Okay? And there's loads of profiles for loads of lenses in Lightroom 4 and Photoshop CS6. Now it's time for Photoshop. In this Photoshop tutorial, I'll be exploring Save for Web in Photoshop CS6. So let's jump into Save for Web. Here I am inside Photoshop, and this time I'll be talking about exporting images for the web and working with Save for Web feature in Photoshop. I'm in Photoshop CS6, so the option I'm going to use is File Save for Web. If you're using one of the previous options of Photoshop, CS5, CS4, you'll be using Save for Web and Devices. Just a slight change of name. Now before I go into Save for Web, I'm going to check the pixel dimensions of the image. So I go to Image Size, and I'll make sure the image is not too big, because if it's really big, it may take a long time to load it in Save for Web and Devices. So the image is currently 1024 on the longer side. So I'll press Cancel. I'm not going to worry about the resolution, because Save for Web uses the resolution of 72 dpi by default. So File, Save for Web, and in Save for Web, I've got a couple of tabs in here. So I'm going to use ForApp, because I want to compare different versions of the same image, and I'm going to make it quite small. So to start with, in the bottom right corner, I'm going to resize it. Okay, so I'm going to click on the width, and I'll change it to, let's say, maybe 600. So to make the image 600 by 400. Okay, it's getting smaller. You can click and drag to reposition the image to focus on any area you want. And I've got the original image here. Now I'll click on this image here, and on the right hand side I've got to set it to JPEG. I'll keep it as a JPEG. JPEG is fine. I've got the resolution set to 60% high. The image looks good, and it's only 41 kilobytes. So it's not too bad. I'll try to make it even less than 40 kilobytes if possible. But let's try different file formats. So if I click on this third image here, I'm going to change the file format to GIF. GIF is very limited. It only supports up to 256 colors, but for the image like this one, might be not too bad. Looks quite okay. I could try to reduce number of colors even more to maybe 64, and it starts looking pretty bad. But notice the file size. It's too big. It's double the size of JPEG. That's because for photography, JPEG is so much better than GIF. GIF is great for images with uniform colors. So not a GIF, no. But let's click on the last image here, and let's change it to a PNG. We'll try PNG 8 first. This is very similar to GIF, so it's very big. It's a bit smaller than GIF, but it's still really big. So I'll try PNG 24 maybe. PNG 24 is uncompressed, so it offers fantastic quality, but it's really big. So I'll stick to JPEG. It looks like JPEG is the only obviously choice. So now I can change the preview to 2up, so the original on the left and the JPEG on the right, and I'll try to compress it even more. I could start dragging the quality down, but another thing I can do is, well, we can reduce file size. So for example, I can tell Photoshop, you know what, I want it to be no more than, let's say, 35 kilobytes. So what you can do is, with the image selected, you click on this menu in the top right corner and you choose optimize to file size. That's how you can tell Photoshop what file size you want it to be. And I'll try 35 kilobytes. With the current settings, that's fine. Use current slice. I'll just press OK. Now the image is 32.6. The quality is set to 50%. And it looks not too bad. I'll try 30 kilobytes. So I'll click on the menu again, optimize to file size, 30 kilobytes. I'll press OK. And it still looks not too bad. So it's 46%, 29.5 kilobytes. Once you've done, you don't see them here on my screen, but in the bottom right corner of the Save Weapon dialog box, you have the Save button where you can save the file, or Done, we can click to exit Save Web and Photoshop will remember the settings you used, or you can just cancel. And that's how it's done. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial in Photoshop on Save for Web. As you may have noticed, it's Save for Web in Photoshop CS6. It used to be Save for Web in devices in CS5 and earlier versions of Photoshop. So I'll encourage you to explore Save for Web. Keep on comparing different file formats when exporting images. And just before I finish this week's episode of Photoshop Lightroom TV, I've got a tip of the week. This will be a photography tip of the week. Actually, an assignment for you. When photographing, explore different angles at which you photograph. So try different angles. For example, if you photograph a flower, try from above the flower, try at the same level, or try from below. So explore different angles, try to work with the same focal length. So if you have a zoom lens, just set it to a certain focal length, for example the widest focal length, and try moving around, get closer, get farther away, and explore. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. I'm Marek Mularczyk from SAItraining.co.uk, and I will see you next week on next week's episode of Photoshop Lightroom TV. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.